Hey guys, Massify here, and I wanted to do a more chill sort of talking head video and explore what I believe are the top 5 reasons players are quitting Throne and Liberty and what could be done to alleviate some of these concerns. And finally, what I think the future of the game is. So let's get into it, and I'd love to hear down below why you quit if you did and why you're staying if you are. First on our list is the pay to win issue, and let's just say it's kind of a big deal for most people. Throne and Liberty is technically free to play, but players quickly realize that if you want to compete at a high level, real cash gives you a real edge. Here's how. So let's say you reach level 50 and the grind to get the best in slot gear starts. Well, traditionally you would have to farm world bosses and dungeons to get not only the gear, but the traits to level up and put on that gear. This can take weeks and weeks to fully achieve a max traded weapon, for example, unless you're extremely lucky. Or you can spend Lucent by swiping and have a max traded weapon within minutes. At the beginning of the game, the market was extremely expensive, but the market has started to correct, and $100 now can really give you an edge. And this is especially noticeable in PvP, where the advantages are clear. Someone who spends can hit harder, recover faster, and generally just have the upper hand over a player who relies on the free-to-play grind. But it's not just about PvP. Even PvE content is affected. Players are finding it challenging to progress without spending, and that's leaving a lot of people with the feeling that the game favors the wealthy rather than the dedicated. This paywall for meaningful progression has made many feel alienated, like they're playing two different games, one for paying players and one for everyone else. My proposed solution to this issue would just to be lessen the requirements and grind for gear progression. Give people more varied options to level up and acquire gear. Whales will still spend, but free-to-play shouldn't be as heavily punished as it is right now. Next up is the combat system, which was billed as immersive and action-packed. It's left players feeling a little bit underwhelmed. Throne and Liberty aimed for a simplified combat approach, and while this can work for some games, here it makes fights feel repetitive and almost, dare I say it, mindless in comparison to other MMOs, especially when it comes down to the simple rotation of each class. Players quickly realize that the game leans on a very basic set of moves, limited combos, few options for crowd control, and very little in the way of tactical maneuvers. This game doesn't give players much control over strategy, and that's been a letdown, especially for me. Players and myself wanted more dynamic, engaging battles, but are just kind of left clicking through the same rotations and avoiding bad matchups in small engagements. Now, here's a major sticking point as far as PvE goes, and that is enemy AI isn't very challenging either. So bosses and other high-level enemies don't require much more than a basic attack and dodge approach. There's no real reason to rethink your strategy or adapt to your playstyle. This lack of depth leaves even PvE veterans just bored and hungry for a richer experience. Bosses mechanically don't offer enough of a varied approach. It just consists of avoid bad and block when it tells you to. My proposed solution here is to allow us to just have a second bar for more skills and rotation variety, or at the very least, don't punish class variety so heavily, which leads right into the next point: limited build diversity. Let's dive into this one because it is frustrating for a lot of fans, including myself. In most RPGs, build diversity is a key part of replayability and player expression. You want to experiment with different skills, adjust your stats, and switch up your class or role specifically. Are you tired of ranged? Fine, switch to melee. You want to be a support? Okay, play a tank or a healer. This keeps things fresh and fun, but Throne and Liberty doesn't exactly make that easy. When players try to change up their builds, they find that the game punishes experimentation by making it a grind to re-level. Basically, if you want to play around with new skills or roles, you're looking at starting from scratch. And in a game that's already grind heavy, this just isn't appealing. Sure, you can use skill transfer scrolls or other items to sort of lessen the grind, but it still essentially breaks down to start over, which sucks. The result, players are essentially locked into one playstyle, and with limited number of viable skills or paths, this leads to a pretty linear experience. Once players find a build that works, they're forced to stick with it unless they're willing to do the grind all over again, which most people are unwilling to do, myself included. This lack of flexibility has left players feeling stifled and discouraged from coming back. The solution here is a simple one. Allow us to actually change class. Whether that's a one-time change before committing or just making it easier to have an alt, something has to be done to allow people some room to experiment. Now, on to number 4, time-gated progression. Throne and Liberty has taken a very traditional Korean MMO approach here, and while it might work in other games, it's driving people away. Here's how it works. You can only complete certain quests or gain access to particular resources at specific times, either daily or weekly. This means your advancement is artificially capped, and even if you're ready to put in more time and grind, the game says, nope, not today, you have to wait. And this trickles into the game's feeling of repetitiveness because it forces you to do the same things to cap them out each day and each week. You can spend entire weeks feeling like your character is not growing very much. For some, this has turned what should be an exciting grind into a chore that you just complete just to check the boxes. For players who are more familiar with Western MMORPGs where you can progress at your own pace, this is a big turnoff. They'd rather spend their time making meaningful progress than being constrained by time-gated mechanics. Now, the solution here is simple. Remove some of the time-gated mechanics, increase the spawns for world bosses so that people have more of an opportunity for drops, and the ability for them to show up to them on off hours is important. So finally, let's talk about PvP. Specifically how unbalanced it is. A big draw for Throne and Liberty was its PvP content, but instead of thrilling battles, players are facing just frustrating mechanics. Here's the problem. The game has evasion mechanics for melee, ranged, and magic attacks, but these rely heavily on RNG. So the alternative is endurance, which although limits people's ability to hit max damage on you, it still leaves you open to getting CC'd constantly, which nobody finds fun. So imagine spending time leveling, honing your skills, only for your attacks to miss because of some random evasion roll. Many players have compared it to just like a casino. It's frustrating, where the outcome feels like pure luck instead of skill. On top of this, the power imbalance from pay-to-win aspects is even more pronounced in PvP. If someone's invested cash into their character at all, they'll dominate in PvP in comparison, and that's not the kind of gameplay most players were hoping for. What should have been competitive, skill-based PvP is instead a playground for big spenders and a kind of gamble for everyone else. My proposed solution here is just to solve the above points, which will open up more avenues for PvP and make it feel more varied. Additionally, I'd like to see them implement a system where people who want to do PvP with equalized gear score can do so. For example, in the arena. It's clear the game's not living up to the expectations for a lot of people. Now, with that being said, I know this sounds like a completely doom and gloom video highlighting all the negatives. I do think Throne and Liberty is a unique take on MMOs and has the potential to be one of the greats, assuming they can adjust and change some of the issues players are having. I'm personally having a ton of fun despite these issues, but that could also be because I found an extremely solid community to play with. Now, if you're sitting there thinking there's no way they're going to make required changes, there is hope because they did substantially change the game from its original form for the Western audience, so that shows NCSoft is committed to making the game successful. Now, where does this leave the game in general? Well, knowing that NCSoft is open to changes and the Korean version of the game being so far ahead in content, I'd say there is a lot of hope that the game will correct its course and become the MMO we all want it to be. I know that despite its flaws, it's a game I'll still be sticking with for a while. So what about you? Are these all deal breakers for you? Do you think the developers can fix anything? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more gaming insights into Throne and Liberty. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a wonderful day. Peace.